All right, back to the great Philadelphia dime heist.
Yep.
Last time we were left hanging about how those guys actually got into the trailer.
Right.
The article was pretty vague on that, which just makes it more intriguing.
It really does.
Yeah.
It speaks to either a surprising lack of security or some clever maneuvering on their part.
Yeah.
It'd be fascinating to know if any security footage exists from inside the truck itself.
Right.
That would answer a lot of questions.
You know what else I find fascinating?
What's that?
The public's reaction to this whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
The article mentions the story going viral, and I can totally see why.
Yeah.
There's something almost absurdly entertaining about a bunch of guys trying to make off with literal tons of dimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like a heist movie gone wrong.
Right.
I bet the memes were flying.
Oh.
When you try to pay your student loans with stolen dimes.
Right.
Or the getaway car got 2 miles per gallon.
Yep.
But beyond the humor, it really makes you think about security in general.
Right.
If they could pull this off with a truck full of coins, what's stopping them from targeting other seemingly low-tech but valuable assets?
Yeah, that's a good point. It challenges our assumptions about what constitutes a high-value target.
Right.
We often associate theft with digital assets and cybercrime, but this case reminds us that physical security is just as important,
Yeah.
especially in an age where so much focus is on the digital world.
So it's like they exploited a blind spot in our collective perception of valuable cargo.
Right.
No one's expecting a daring dime heist in the 21st century.
Right.
But back to the actual investigation.
Uh-huh.
How did they even begin to track those dimes?
Uh-huh.
It's not like they were marked bills with serial numbers.
That's where good old-fashioned detective work comes in.
Right. The article mentioned combing through surveillance footage and tracing financial transactions.
Right.
It's a classic approach, but with a digital twist.
Okay.
I imagine they were looking at patterns.
Yeah.
Did these guys suddenly start making large deposits?
Right.
Did they frequent certain coin counting machines?
Right.
That kind of data analysis can paint a pretty clear picture.
And it sounds like they were not very subtle about it.
No, not at all.
They basically went on a dime spending spree.
Yeah.
Which, as we discussed, is the rookie mistake of money laundering.
Exactly. They probably thought small, frequent transactions would fly on the radar.
Right.
But financial institutions are incredibly sensitive to unusual activity.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to large quantities of coins.
Yeah.
It's like trying to hide a mountain of dimes under a rug.
Right.
It's just not going to work.
But let's say they had been more cautious.
Yeah.
Maybe you tried to launder the money through less obvious channels.
Yeah.
What are some other tactics they could have employed?
Well, there are countless ways to try and launder money.
Right.
But they all boil down to obscuring the source and integrating it into the legitimate economy.
Right.
Some classic methods include using shell corporations,
Okay.
investing in real estate,
Right.
or even smuggling cash overseas.
Wow.
But even the most sophisticated schemes eventually leave a trail.
Yeah.
So no matter how clever they try to be,
Yeah.
eventually the dimes lead back to the culprit.
Yeah.
It's almost poetic justice, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
There's a certain irony in the fact that their attempt to get rich quick ultimately backfired
Right.
because they underestimated the complexities of the financial system
Right.
that they were trying to manipulate.
All right, but before we get too philosophical,
Okay.
I want to go back to the human element in all of this.
Right.
These weren't criminal masterminds.
Right.
They were 4 guys who saw an opportunity and took a chance,
Yeah.
albeit a very ill-conceived one.
What do you think was going through their minds when they hatched this plan?
It's hard to say for sure,
Yeah.
but perhaps they were driven by desperation greed,
Mm-hmm.
or a combination of both.
Right.
Maybe they saw this as a victimless crime, failing to grasp the serious consequences of stealing U.S. currency.
Right.
Whatever their motivation, it's clear their planning didn't extend beyond the initial theft.
And that lack of foresight ultimately led to their downfall.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that even in the world of crime, a good exit strategy is crucial.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like writing a novel.
Yeah.
The ending matters just as much as the beginning.
Right.
They may have had a decent first act,
Uh-huh.
but their epilogue was disastrous.
So they're arrested, facing serious charges, and likely regretting ever seeing a dime, let alone 2 million of them.
Right.
But what about the aftermath?
Okay.
Did the article mention anything about the investigation's impact on the U.S. Mint?
It didn't go into specifics, but you can bet this incident sent shockwaves through their security protocols. I imagine there were internal investigations,
Yeah.
audits, and maybe even congressional hearings.
Wow.
to determine how such a massive security breach could occur.
This one heist could end up reshaping the entire way they handle currency transportation.
Right.
Talk about a ripple effect.
It speaks to a larger issue of complacency.
Yeah.
Perhaps the U.S. Mint, like many institutions, had become too comfortable with their existing security measures,
Yeah.
assuming they were sufficient.
Right.
This heist was a stark reminder that vulnerabilities can exist,
Right.
even in the most seemingly secure systems.
And those vulnerabilities can be exposed in the most unexpected ways.
Yep.
Who would have thought a mountain of dimes could bring down the house?
It's a fascinating paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
Something so seemingly insignificant, a dime,
Right.
can become a powerful symbol of both vulnerability and opportunity.
Yeah.
In this case, it exposed a weakness in a supposedly secure system,
Uh-huh.
but it also presented an opportunity for improvement.
Well, I, for one, am suddenly paying a lot more attention to those dimes rolling around in my pocket. But before we spiral down a philosophical rabbit hole,
Okay.
let's get back to the practical implications.
All right.
If the U.S. Mint is forced to revamp its security protocols, what might that look like?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
We could see a shift towards more sophisticated tracking technologies,
Okay.
stricter regulations on transport routes and personnel,
Right?
maybe even the integration of AI-powered surveillance systems.
Wow.
It could revolutionize the way valuable cargo is secured,
Right.
not just for the U.S. Mint, but for countless other organizations.
It's like a domino effect.
Yep.
One seemingly simple crime could trigger a cascade of innovation in the security industry.
Right.
It makes you wonder what other unforeseen consequences might emerge from this case.
Exactly. And that brings us to a larger question.
Okay.
Is this a sign of things to come
Uh-huh.
as we increasingly rely on digital transactions?
Right.
Could we see a resurgence of physical theft targeting the remaining bastions of physical currency? Or will criminals evolve their tactics to focus on vulnerabilities in the digital realm?
It's almost like a philosophical battle between analog and digital crime.
Right.
Will the future of theft be dominated by hackers and cybercriminals? Or will old-school methods like this dime heist make a comeback?
It's a question worth pondering, isn't it?
Yeah.
Perhaps we'll see a hybrid approach,
Okay.
with criminals blending traditional and digital tactics
Right.
to exploit vulnerabilities wherever they exist.
So no matter how much technology advances,
Yeah.
the human element of crime,
Right.
the ingenuity, the desperation, the sheer audacity will always find a way to adapt and exploit.
That seems to be a constant throughout history,
Yeah.
but it also presents a challenge.
Yeah.
How do we create security systems that are not only technologically advanced, but also adaptable and resilient
Right.
to the ever-evolving nature of criminal behavior? It's a question that will continue to challenge us
Right.
as we navigate the complexities of a rapidly changing world.
Well, that's a pretty profound thought to chew on.
Ye-
But our deep dive isn't over yet.
Aye.
In part 3, we'll tackle the legal ramifications for our dime thieving crew
Okay.
and explore the long-term impact this case could have on security and the future of currency.
That's good.
All right, final part of our deep dive into this crazy dime heist story.
Yeah.
We've talked about the crime itself, the investigation, the surprisingly low-tech methods, even the internet's reaction.
Right.
But now let's get serious. What are the lasting implications of this whole thing?
That's the key question, isn't it?
Yeah.
On the surface, it's an entertaining story about a bunch of guys who bit off way more than they could chew.
Right.
But if you dig a little deeper, it exposes some fundamental truths about security crime and maybe even the future of currency itself.
Okay, so we've established that the U.S. Mint probably had a major security wake-up call.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean in practical terms?
Well, think about it.
Yeah.
This wasn't some sophisticated cyber attack.
Right.
It was brute force theft, something you'd expect to see in an old heist movie, not in 2023.
Right.
That suggests a potential disconnect between how we perceive threats and where those threats actually come from.
So it's like everyone's so focused on cybersecurity that they forgot about the basics.
Exactly.
Locking the doors, so to speak.
This case could force organizations to rethink their entire approach to security.
Right.
It's not just about firewalls and encryption anymore.
Yeah.
It's about a holistic approach that addresses both physical and digital vulnerabilities.
So what are we talking about here?
Mm.
More guards, better locks,
Sure.
GPS trackers on every shipment of dimes.
It could be all of the above.
Mhm.
We might see a surge in demand for advanced surveillance technologies,
Okay.
more stringent background checks for personnel handling valuable assets,
Right.
maybe even a shift towards more decentralized storage solutions. It's hard to say exactly what the future holds, but this case could be a catalyst for some major changes.
It's almost like those guys accidentally sparked a security revolution with their mountain of stolen dimes.
And here's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
Think about the broader implications for the financial system.
Yeah,
We're moving towards a cashless society,
right,
but physical currency isn't going away anytime soon.
right.
This case highlights the fact that as long as there's cash out there, someone will try to steal it.
So are we destined for an endless cycle of increasingly elaborate heists as technology advances?
Mhm.
Will we see a resurgence of old-school bank robberies alongside sophisticated cyber attacks?
It's not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
But here's the crucial point.
Okay.
This case wasn't just about a lack of physical security.
Right.
It was also about a failure to grasp the complexities of the financial system itself.
Okay.
These guys thought they could simply deposit a bunch of dimes and walk away rich. They underestimated the level of scrutiny and sophistication involved in tracking financial transactions.
So it wasn't just the heist that was low-tech, it was their entire money laundering scheme.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that brings us to a fascinating question.
Okay.
As we move towards a more digital world, will criminals adapt their tactics to focus on vulnerabilities in the digital realm?
Hmm.
Will we see a rise in cryptocurrency heists, identity theft, and other forms of digital fraud?
Right.
Or will they continue to find ways to exploit the remaining vestiges of the physical financial system?
It's like a race between two worlds, the analog and the digital.
Right.
Which side will win?
It's impossible to say for sure,
Right.
but I suspect we'll see a convergence of both.
Yeah.
The most successful criminals will be those who can seamlessly blend traditional and digital tactics,
Right.
exploiting weaknesses wherever they find them.
Okay, so that's a pretty sobering thought.
Yeah.
But let's not forget the immediate consequences for our dime-thieving crew.
Okay.
What's the likely outcome of their legal battle?
Well, they're facing serious charges related to the theft of U.S. currency.
Right.
And because the U.S. Mint was involved, this is a federal case.
Right.
That means they could be looking at decades behind bars, hefty fines, and a lifetime of trying to rebuild their lives with a criminal record.
It seems like a pretty steep price to pay for a truckload of dimes,
It is.
even if they'd managed to launder it successfully.
And it highlights a crucial point.
Yeah.
Crime, no matter how seemingly insignificant, carries real consequences.
Right.
There's a reason those crime doesn't pay. Posters exist.
Well, I think we've covered just about every angle of this fascinating case.
We have.
From the audacity of the crime itself to the unexpected consequences and the broader implications for security and the future of currency, it's been quite a journey.
It really has. And it just goes to show that even a seemingly simple story about a bunch of guys stealing dimes can teach us a lot about the complexities of our world.
And it might even spark a revolution in security protocols and make us all think twice about those loose coins rattling around in our pockets.
Absolutely.
So until next time, stay vigilant, keep your digital wallet secure, and maybe invest in a good old-fashioned piggy bank for those spare dimes.
Great advice.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time for another fascinating exploration of the world around us.